My name is Sofia Martinez, and I'm 32 years old. Tonight I'm standing in the parking lot of the Hilton Hotel ballroom, watching through the window as my mother Catherine and father Robert laugh with old friends at their 25th college reunion. In my purse is a folder containing documents that will expose their 20-year secret. They abandoned me at 18 after high school graduation, then told extended family I chose to cut contact. For 2 decades, they've claimed credit for my success while I built everything alone. Tonight, 200 alumni witnesses will learn the truth about who Catherine and Robert Martinez really are. Before I tell you how I got here and what happened next, I want to know where you're watching from. Drop your city or country in the comments because this story crosses all borders. If you've ever felt betrayed by the people who were supposed to protect you, hit that like button. And please subscribe, because what unfolds tonight is the kind of family reckoning that changes everything. Trust me, you won't want to miss how this ends. June 7th, 2003 started as the best day of my life. I graduated valedictorian from Lincoln High School that morning, wearing my cap and gown with a gold honor cord draped around my neck. The scholarship letter from Stanford University sat folded in my pocket, full ride for pre-med track. 4 years of perfect grades, volunteering at the hospital every weekend, science competitions I won across 3 states, all of it led to this moment. My parents seemed proud during the ceremony. My father Robert stood and cheered when they called my name. My mother Catherine took photos with her new digital camera, smiling as I posed with my diploma. They hugged me afterward in the parking lot, told me they loved me. I believed them completely. That evening, we had reservations at Romano's, the nicest Italian restaurant in town. My maternal grandparents came, along with Uncle Raymond and Aunt Patricia. Everyone ordered expensive entrees, raised glasses of champagne to toast my future. I remember feeling so grateful, so loved, so ready for the next chapter. Then dessert arrived, and the temperature at our table dropped 20 degrees. My mother's smile disappeared. My father's jaw clenched tight. They barely spoke during tiramisu, answering questions from relatives in clipped single words. I asked if something was wrong. My mother said we'd discuss it at home. The knot in my stomach grew tighter with each silent minute. The drive home lasted 15 minutes but felt like hours. No music, no conversation, just terrible, suffocating silence. I tried twice to ask what I'd done wrong. Both times my father told me to be quiet. My mother stared out the passenger window like I didn't exist. We pulled into our driveway on Maple Street at 8:45 p.m. I remember the exact time because I checked my watch, thinking maybe they'd planned a surprise party, and this was all an act. The neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Chen, were watering their garden next door. Mrs. Chen waved at me. I waved back, still clueless about what was coming. My father parked and turned off the engine. My mother twisted around in her seat to face me in the back. Her expression was cold, flat, completely devoid of the warmth I'd seen just hours earlier. She said, "We've done our legal obligation. You're 18 now. We need to focus on our own lives and marriage." I didn't understand at first. I laughed nervously, asked what she meant. My father said, "We never wanted children. Your birth was an accident we tolerated for 18 years. That obligation ends today." The words didn't make sense. I sat there in the back seat, my graduation tassel still hanging from the rearview mirror, trying to process what I was hearing. My mother pulled an envelope from her purse and handed it back to me. "There's $2,000. That's more than generous for a fresh start." I opened the envelope with shaking hands. 20 crisp $100 bills. My father got out of the car, popped the trunk. I heard him walking toward the house, then returning. He opened my door, and 3 large black garbage bags hit the driveway next to me. "Your belongings. Take them and go." I started crying. "What did I do wrong? Please tell me what I did." "You didn't do anything wrong," my mother said. She sounded almost bored. "We simply don't want to be parents anymore. We've earned our freedom." I begged. I actually got on my knees on the driveway and begged them to explain, to let me inside, to tell me this was some cruel joke. The Chens were still in their yard, witnessing everything. Mrs. Chen had dropped hair hose. My father physically lifted me to my feet and pushed me away from the car. "If you come back, I'm calling the police. You're trespassing," my mother added. "You're an adult now. Figure it out." They walked into the house and locked the door. I stood there sobbing, pounding on the door, screaming for them to please just talk to me. The porch light turned off. Then the living room lights. They went to bed while I fell apart on their doorstep. One of the garbage bags split open when I tried to lift it. My childhood photos scattered across the wet grass, getting soaked from the Chens' runoff water. My debate team trophies rolled into the gutter. Everything I owned in the world reduced to trash bags they couldn't even tie properly. Mr. Chen called my Uncle Raymond. I didn't know that until Raymond's car pulled up 30 minutes later, Aunt Patricia in the passenger seat. Patricia was my mother's younger sister, the family member I'd always felt closest to. She took one look at me surrounded by garbage bags and broken belongings and marched up to the door. She rang the bell 50 times, pounded on the door, shouted for Catherine to open up immediately. My parents never answered. My father yelled through the door that they'd call the cops if anyone stayed on their property. Uncle Raymond loaded my garbage bags into his truck. Aunt Patricia held me while I hyperventilated. They drove me to their house in the next town over, set me up in their guest room. I cried myself sick that night, throwing up from the stress and confusion. The next 2 weeks were a blur of my aunt and uncle trying to get answers. They called my parents every day. Catherine either didn't pick up or hung up immediately. Robert blocked their numbers. Patricia drove to Catherine's workplace, a dental office where she worked as a hygienist, and confronted her in the parking lot. My mother told her own sister that I was lying, that I'd been disrespectful and ungrateful for months, that I chose to leave because I wanted independence. Patricia said that was nonsense. She'd seen me begging on the doorstep. Catherine called her a meddler and drove away. That's when my parents started the campaign of lies. Catherine and Robert moved quickly to control the narrative. Within days of abandoning me, they began calling extended family members with their version of events. I was rebellious, they said, disrespectful. I'd rejected their values and chosen to cut them off. They were heartbroken, they claimed, but had to respect my decision to go no contact. My grandmother Helen, Catherine's mother, called Uncle Raymond's house in tears. "Why won't Sophia talk to her parents? They're devastated." Raymond tried to explain the truth. Grandmother didn't believe him. How could a mother abandon her child on graduation night? It was unthinkable. Therefore it must not be true. The parents must be telling the truth, because what kind of 18-year-old walks away from a loving home? My cousins started asking questions at family gatherings I was no longer invited to. Why did Sophia leave? What happened? Catherine and Robert painted me as troubled, ungrateful, too proud to accept help. They were saints, they implied, for even speaking about me after I hurt them so badly. Aunt Patricia fought back hard. She told anyone who would listen that she'd witnessed the abandonment, that her sister was lying. Some family members believed her. Most didn't. Catherine was their daughter, sister, cousin. I was just the troubled teen who'd made a mistake and was too stubborn to apologize. By the end of that summer, I'd lost contact with my grandparents, my cousins, most of my extended family. They believed I was the villain in this story. My parents were the victims. Meanwhile, I was trying to survive. Stanford's freshman orientation was in late August. I needed to get from Raymond's house in Ohio to Palo Alto, California, with 3 garbage bags and $2,000 to my name. The university offered emergency housing for students in crisis, but the application required documentation I didn't have. My parents wouldn't provide tax returns or sign financial aid forms. The financial aid office initially denied my independent student status. I was only 18. Federal law assumed parental support until age 24 unless I was married, had a child, or was in the military. None applied. I made appointment after appointment, bringing bank statements showing 0 deposits from my parents, bringing Aunt Patricia as a witness, bringing that envelope with $2,000 as proof of exactly how much support they'd provided. Finally, in mid-August, a sympathetic aid officer named Dorothy Chen approved my status. Full scholarship covered tuition, but housing and food were different matters. The cheapest dorm room was $8,000 annually. Meal plans started at $4,000. My $2,000 wouldn't cover 2 months. I applied for every campus job available. Landed 3. I worked morning shifts at the library, afternoon shifts at the campus bookstore, night shifts at the dining hall. My schedule looked insane, but I had no choice. Between my 3 jobs, I earned roughly $1,400 monthly. After housing and minimum meal plan, I had about $200 for everything else. Textbooks cost hundreds per class. I couldn't afford them. I spent hours in the library, reading from reserve copies, taking detailed notes by hand. While my roommate decorated our dorm with posters and fairy lights, my side stayed bare. She went out for coffee and movies with friends. I studied and worked. November brought Thanksgiving break. Campus emptied out. My roommate's parents arrived with a rental van to take her home to Seattle. They brought her favorite foods, helped her pack, hugged her goodbye. She asked what time my parents were picking me up. I lied and said they were coming later. Then I stayed in our empty dorm for 5 days, eating ramen noodles and peanut butter sandwiches. The dining halls closed for the holiday. I had no money for restaurants. I just waited it out. Christmas was worse. 3 weeks of empty campus, closed buildings, silence. I picked up extra shifts at a local grocery store that stayed open through the holidays. Worked 10-hour days stocking shelves and running registers. Came back to the dorm each night exhausted and alone. I watched through social media as my former classmates posted photos of family celebrations, home-cooked meals, wrapped presents, relatives gathered around Christmas trees. My feed was full of love and togetherness while I microwaved soup in a dorm kitchen and cried myself to sleep. My grades suffered that first semester. I was so tired all the time. Working 50 hours a week while taking 15 credit hours of advanced science classes destroyed me physically and mentally. I fell asleep during lectures, turned in assignments late, failed my first organic chemistry midterm. That failure terrified me. I needed a 3.5 GPA to keep my scholarship. Without that scholarship, I had nothing, nowhere to go, no backup plan. The stakes were survival. In January, my academic advisor, Professor Helen Richardson, called me into her office. She'd noticed my declining performance and wanted to help. I broke down and told her everything: the abandonment, the 3 jobs, the food insecurity, all of it. Professor Richardson cried. Then she got angry. Then she made phone calls. She connected me with campus resources I didn't know existed. The student food bank provided groceries twice weekly. Campus counseling services offered free therapy. The financial aid office approved additional emergency funding that reduced my housing costs. Professor Richardson personally paid for my textbooks that semester, calling it a loan she never expected back. Slowly, I stabilized, quit one of my 3 jobs so I had time to study, started seeing a counselor named Dr. Marcus Chen, who taught me coping strategies for anxiety and depression, brought my GPA back up to 3.7 by the end of freshman year. But the loneliness never went away. Every parents' weekend, every family visiting day, every graduation ceremony I'd attend in future years, I was alone. I watched other students get picked up for lunch, helped with move-ins, celebrated over dinner. Their parents bought them groceries, slipped them extra cash, just showed up because they cared. I had none of that. I had Uncle Raymond sending $20 when he could spare it, and Aunt Patricia calling monthly to check on me. I had Professor Richardson believing in me. But I didn't have parents. And while I struggled, Catherine and Robert told everyone I'd rejected their help. They wanted to support me, they claimed, but I was too proud to accept it. I graduated from Stanford in June 2007 with honors in molecular biology. Uncle Raymond drove across the country to attend my graduation. He was the only person in the audience for me. We took one photo together afterward. I wore my cap and gown and the biggest fake smile I could manage while my heart broke, watching other graduates surrounded by huge families. That photo sits framed in my office now, a reminder of where I started. After graduation, I accepted a research position at Johns Hopkins Medical Facility in Baltimore. Entry level, minimal pay, but it was the right step. I moved across the country again with everything I owned fitting in my used Honda Civic. Rented a studio apartment in a questionable neighborhood because it was all I could afford. For the next 3 years, I lived and breathed work. I was always the first researcher in the lab and the last to leave. I volunteered for every difficult project, every weekend shift, every task others avoided. I had nothing else in my life, no family obligations or social commitments, so I poured everything into my career. My supervising physician, Dr. Patricia Nguyen, noticed my dedication. She started assigning me increasingly complex projects. By my second year, I was leading research on genetic markers for hereditary disorders. By my third year, I'd co-authored papers in major medical journals. The work was fascinating. We were identifying genetic mutations that caused devastating diseases, developing screening tests to catch them early. I felt like I was doing something meaningful, something that mattered. Every breakthrough in the lab felt like proof that I had value, that my existence meant something, even if my parents didn't think so. In 2010, Dr. Nguyen recommended me for a promotion to senior researcher. At 25, I was one of the youngest people in that role at Hopkins. The salary jumped to $78,000 annually. It felt like wealth after years of poverty. I paid off my student loans aggressively, moved to a better apartment, bought professional clothes that fit properly, started saving money for the first time in my life. But I was lonely, desperately, achingly lonely. I tried dating occasionally, met people through work or apps. Every relationship followed the same pattern. We'd go on a few dates, things would seem promising, then they'd ask about my family. I'd either lie and say we weren't close, or I'd tell the truth and watch them get uncomfortable. Who wants to date someone whose own parents abandoned them? It felt like a scarlet letter. My therapist, Dr. Marcus Chen, who I'd continued seeing remotely after leaving Stanford, pointed out that I was using achievement as a band-aid. You're trying to prove your worth through success. But worthiness doesn't come from accomplishments. I understood his point intellectually. Emotionally, I couldn't accept it. If I wasn't successful, what did I have? My value had to come from somewhere. At 27, I attended a medical technology conference in Boston. During a panel discussion on genetic screening innovations, I met venture capitalist Gerald Torres. He approached me after I presented research findings, said he was impressed by my work. We talked for 2 hours about the commercial potential for genetic screening technology. 6 months later, Gerald connected me with 2 other researchers and offered to fund a startup. We founded Helix Diagnostics in 2012. I became Chief Science Officer, leading product development, while my co-founders handled business operations and clinical trials. The first 2 years were brutal. Constant investor pitches, FDA regulatory meetings, product testing failures, cash flow crises. I worked 90-hour weeks, slept in the office, lived on coffee and takeout. We nearly went bankrupt twice. Then, in 2014, the FDA approved our primary genetic screening panel. It tested for 40 hereditary conditions using a simple blood sample, with results in 48 hours. Hospitals and clinics started adopting it. Revenue grew from nothing to $12 million in year one. By 2016, Helix Diagnostics employed 120 people and had secured $30 million in Series B funding. Company valuation hit $50 million. At 31 years old, my equity stake was worth roughly $8 million on paper. Forbes featured me in their 30 under 30 healthcare list. Women in Science magazine interviewed me for their cover story. I spoke at conferences worldwide, advised other biotech startups, got invited to exclusive industry events. From the outside, I had everything: success, wealth, recognition, respect. Inside, I was still that 18-year-old crying on her parents' doorstep, trying to understand what was wrong with her. I bought a beautiful house in a Baltimore suburb, 4 bedrooms for just me. I decorated it carefully, bought expensive furniture, made it look like a real home. Then I sat alone in that big empty house every night wondering what the point was. I adopted a dog, a rescue golden retriever I named Justice. Finally, someone happy to see me come home. Dr. Chen and I worked through layers of abandonment trauma in our sessions. He helped me recognize that my compulsive achievement was about proving to my parents that they were wrong about me, except they'd never know, because they'd vanished from my life completely. Or so I thought. January 20th, 2023 started as an ordinary Friday. I was reviewing quarterly financial reports in my office when a LinkedIn message notification popped up on my screen. The sender was Derek Hamilton, someone I vaguely remembered from freshman biology lab at Stanford. The message read, "Hey Sophia, saw your parents at the Hendersons' holiday party last month. Your mom was telling everyone about your success with Helix Diagnostics. Must be so proud. Hope you're doing well." I stared at that message for 10 minutes straight. My parents, at a party, talking about me. I hadn't heard from Catherine or Robert in nearly 20 years. Not a single call, email, letter, or text message. Complete silence since that June night in 2003. I'd assumed they wanted nothing to do with me, which matched what they'd said when they threw me out, but apparently they were talking about me at parties. I replied to Derek asking for clarification. What exactly did my mother say? Was I misunderstanding? Derek responded within an hour. She was showing everyone photos on her phone from when you were younger, talking about how she and your dad always knew you'd do great things, how they encouraged your interest in science. Everyone was really impressed. Your dad told some story about helping you prepare for the Saturday. It was sweet. My hands shook as I typed. Derek, I need to tell you something. I haven't spoken to my parents since I was 18. They kicked me out of their house the night of my high school graduation and told me they never wanted children. Everything they said at that party was a lie. Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Finally, are you serious? Oh my God, Sophia. I'm so sorry. I had no idea. We messaged back and forth for an hour. Derek apologized profusely, said multiple people at the party asked about me after my parents brought me up. Everyone walked away thinking Catherine and Robert were these wonderful, supportive parents of a successful daughter. The rage that filled me was unlike anything I'd experienced before. For 20 years, I believed they wanted nothing to do with me. I built my entire life carrying the weight of rejection, and apparently they'd been telling people they were proud of me, taking credit for my accomplishments, performing the role of supportive parents while doing absolutely nothing to support me. I started investigating. Catherine's Facebook profile was semi-public. I scrolled back through years of posts. There, scattered throughout, were photos of me as a child and teenager. Throwback Thursday to Sophia's science fair project. Always so brilliant. Posted 3 years ago. Missing my girl today. Posted last year alongside my high school graduation photo. The one where I'm smiling before they destroyed my life. The comments killed me. Beautiful daughter. She gets her intelligence from you. What a blessing. My mother replied to these comments with sad face emojis and vague statements like, they grow up so fast and so proud of her. Nothing about abandonment. Nothing about 20 years of no contact. Just a performance of motherhood for social media validation. Robert's LinkedIn profile listed him as proud father of Sophia Martinez, CEO of Helix Diagnostics. His bio mentioned family values and investing in the next generation. I checked Instagram, Twitter. Every platform revealed the same pattern. My parents had crafted a narrative where they were loving, involved parents. They shared articles about me when my company made news. They posted throwback photos with captions about cherishing memories, and I'd had no idea. I called Aunt Patricia immediately. She'd remained my only family contact over the years, though we drifted apart as I got busier with work. Patricia, did you know my parents have been claiming to be involved in my life? Long pause. What do you mean? I told her everything I'd discovered. She went silent for so long I thought the call dropped. Finally, Sophia, I've been trying to defend you at family gatherings for years. Every time your name comes up, Catherine acts like you two just had a disagreement. She says you're stubborn. You won't return her calls, but she's hopeful you'll reconcile someday. I keep telling people the truth about what happened, but what? Your parents deleted my comments on their Facebook posts. They never directly said you reconciled, but they implied enough that people assumed. And honestly, your success made their story more believable. People think, look how well Sophia turned out. Her parents must have done something right. I felt sick. They'd weaponized my achievements, used my success, which I'd built entirely without them, as proof of their good parenting. They got social status and admiration, while I got nothing but trauma. The hurt I thought I'd processed came roaring back. I'd spent years in therapy learning to accept that some parents aren't capable of love, that their rejection wasn't about my worthiness. I'd made peace with being parentless. But this was different. This wasn't rejection. This was theft. They'd stolen my narrative. That evening, I went deeper into my research. Local newspaper archives revealed an article from 2018 about successful alumni from their college. Catherine and Robert were interviewed. The article quoted Robert. We raised Sophia to have strong work ethic and pursue excellence. Seeing her succeed in medical research makes all those sacrifices worthwhile. What sacrifices? They'd sacrifice nothing. I sacrificed. I went hungry. I worked 3 jobs. I spent holidays alone. They'd done nothing but remove themselves from my life, then took credit for what I built in their absence. Another article from the University Alumni magazine featured Catherine talking about the joys and challenges of raising a daughter in competitive academic environments. She discussed balancing encouragement with allowing independence. Every word was fiction. I showed everything to Dr. Chen in our next therapy session. He listened quietly, then said, "What do you want to do about this?" "Good question. What could I do? They weren't breaking any laws. They were just lying, and people believed them." "I want to confront them," I said, "publicly. The way they publicly lied." Dr. Chen asked me to consider the emotional consequences. Confrontation could bring closure, or it could reopen wounds that never fully healed. Was I prepared for either outcome? I thought about it for days. Then I discovered they had a college reunion scheduled for March 15th, 25th anniversary reunion for their graduating class. A formal event at a hotel ballroom with 200 expected attendees. Perfect. They'd performed the role of devoted parents for 20 years in front of scattered audiences. Time to correct the record in front of everyone at once. I consulted with my lawyer, Amanda Foster, who'd handled various corporate issues for Helix Diagnostics. Could my parents sue me for defamation if I publicly told the truth about what they did? Amanda reviewed everything. The timeline, the witnesses, the documentation I'd gathered. Truth is an absolute defense against defamation. If everything you're saying is accurate and you can prove it, they have no case. However, be strategic. Don't exaggerate, don't embellish, stick to facts. She helped me compile evidence into a presentation folder. Bank records showing 0 financial support during college, tax returns I'd obtained through legal channels showing they'd fraudulently claimed me as a dependent for years after abandonment, social media screenshots, the newspaper articles, sworn statements from the Chens who'd witnessed the abandonment. Everything documented. Everything provable. I want to pause here because I know some of you watching might think I'm going too far. Maybe you're wondering if public confrontation is the right move. Drop a comment and tell me what you'd do in this situation. Would you let it go, or would you make sure the truth came out? And if you're invested in finding out what happened when I walked into that reunion, make sure you're subscribed, because Part 6 is where everything explodes. February became the month of preparation. I hired a private investigator, Wallace Brooks, who specialized in family legal matters. I needed documentation beyond what I'd already gathered. Wallace was thorough and discreet. Within 2 weeks, he returned with a comprehensive report. My parents had refinanced their home 3 times since 2003. Each time they'd pulled out equity for luxury purchases. A new BMW for Robert in 2008. Kitchen renovation in 2012. Timeshare condo in Florida in 2016. They'd spent hundreds of thousands on themselves while telling everyone they'd tried to help me financially. Wallace also obtained their tax returns through legal discovery methods. The returns confirmed what I'd suspected. They'd claimed me as a dependent through tax year 2007, 4 years after abandoning me. They'd received tax breaks for supporting a college student they'd provided 0 support to. Technically tax fraud. The documentation grew thicker. Wallace interviewed former neighbors, including the Chens, who provided written statements about what they'd witnessed that graduation night. Mrs. Chen described hearing me scream and cry on the doorstep. Mr. Chen stated he'd personally loaded my garbage bags into Uncle Raymond's truck. My lawyer Amanda reviewed everything with careful attention. This is solid. You're protected legally. But Sophia, I have to ask, what's your end goal? What do you want from this confrontation? I'd been asking myself the same question. Did I want an apology? After 20 years, would sorry even mean anything? Did I want them to suffer the way I'd suffered? That felt petty, but also justified. Did I want the extended family who'd believed their lies to know the truth? Yes, absolutely. But mostly, I realized, I wanted my narrative back. They'd stolen my story and rewritten it with themselves as heroes. I needed to reclaim it. Uncle Raymond called me one evening in late February. We'd stayed in touch over the years, though guilt had always colored our relationship. He felt responsible for not doing more to help me back then. Sophia, Patricia told me what you're planning. I support you completely, but I need to tell you something I should have said years ago. He explained that he'd attended family gatherings over the years where Catherine and Robert held court. They'd perfected their performance, playing the role of heartbroken parents whose daughter had cut them off. Raymond had challenged them multiple times, calling them liars in front of relatives. Your mother is very good at playing victim, Raymond said. She'd cry, say how much she missed you, claim she didn't understand what she'd done wrong. People believed her because the truth was too ugly to accept. What kind of parents abandon their child? It was easier for everyone to believe you were the problem. Raymond had stopped going to most family events 5 years ago. He couldn't stomach watching Catherine and Robert receive sympathy for a situation they'd created. I should have fought harder for you, he said, voice breaking. I should have made more noise, caused more scenes. I let them control the narrative to keep peace, and that was wrong. I forgave him. He'd taken me in when I had nowhere to go. He'd driven across the country for my college graduation when no one else came. He'd done his best in an impossible situation. Aunt Patricia called next, offering to attend the reunion with me for support. I declined. This was something I needed to do alone. But I appreciated her willingness to stand with me publicly after years of being dismissed by her own family. The internal conflict grew as March approached. Part of me felt powerful and justified. Another part felt scared and vindictive. Was I becoming cruel like them? Was public humiliation really justice, or just revenge? Dr. Chen and I worked through these questions in multiple sessions. There's a difference between justice and revenge, he said. Justice is about truth and accountability. Revenge is about causing pain. Examine your motives honestly. If you confront them to hurt them, that's revenge. If you confront them to correct the record and reclaim your story, that's justice. I sat with that distinction. Yes, I wanted them to hurt the way they'd hurt me. But more than that, I wanted the lying to stop. I wanted grandmother Helen, who I'd lost contact with years ago, to know her daughter had lied. I wanted the cousins who'd believed I was ungrateful to know the truth. I wanted every person who'd praised Catherine and Robert's parenting to understand what they'd actually done. In early March, I found my childhood diary in a box of things Uncle Raymond had stored for me. I'd written in it regularly from ages 12 to 17. Reading it as an adult was devastating. Mom seems annoyed whenever I talk. Did I do something wrong? Age 13. Dad didn't come to my debate tournament again. He said work was more important. Age 14. Sometimes I feel like they'd be happier if I didn't exist. Age 16. Only 2 more years until college. Maybe then they'll miss me and realize they love me. Age 17. The abandonment hadn't been sudden. It had been the culmination of years of emotional neglect and resentment. I'd just been too young to fully recognize it. I practiced my confrontation speech 50 times in front of my bathroom mirror, memorized the key points, anticipated their possible reactions: denial, gaslighting, victim blaming, playing the mental health card. I prepared responses for each scenario. Amanda helped me draft a cease and desist letter to send if they tried to sue or continue using my name publicly. We had a defamation countersuit ready if needed. I bought a navy blue suit for the reunion, professional and commanding. Had my hair styled, nails done. I wanted to look successful and controlled, not like a hurt child. This wasn't about emotion, though emotion fueled it. This was about facts. The night before the reunion, I barely slept. Justice, my dog, sensed my anxiety and stayed pressed against my side all night. I kept mentally rehearsing, imagining different versions of how it could unfold. Best case scenario: I speak my truth, people believe me. My parents are exposed and I walk away with closure. Worst case scenario: no one believes me. I look unstable and nothing changes except now I'm publicly labeled as the problem child my parents always claimed I was. Moderate scenario: some people believe me, some don't. My parents' reputation takes a hit but isn't destroyed, and I've at least tried. I could live with any of those outcomes. What I couldn't live with was letting them continue stealing my story. March 15th arrived. I drove to the Hilton Hotel at 6:30 p.m. The reunion started at 7. I wanted to arrive after them, make sure they were settled and surrounded by people before I revealed myself. My hands shook as I parked. I sat in my car for 10 minutes doing breathing exercises Dr. Chen had taught me. In for 4 counts, hold for 4, out for 4, repeat until calm. At 6:50, I grabbed my leather folder containing all the evidence and walked toward the hotel entrance. Through the glass doors, I could see the ballroom entrance decorated with my parents' university colors: navy blue and silver balloons, a banner reading Class of 1998, 25 years of excellence. This was it. No going back after I walked through those doors. I thought one more time about turning around, letting it go, moving on with my life without this confrontation. It would be easier, less messy, more mature maybe. But they'd had 20 years of lying, 20 years of stealing credit for what I'd built, 20 years of making me the villain while they played saints. Time to balance the scales. I walked inside. The hotel lobby smelled like expensive floral arrangements and carpet cleaner. Classical music played softly through speakers. Well-dressed people in their late 40s and early 50s milled around, checking in at the registration desk, greeting old friends with enthusiastic hugs. I approached the desk where a cheerful woman in her 30s sat with a laptop and name tag stickers. Her badge identified her as Emma Lawson, event coordinator. "Good evening. Name, please?" She smiled brightly. "Sofia Martinez." Emma scrolled through her list, frowned slightly. I don't see you registered. Are you an alumna?" "I'm a guest of Catherine and Robert Martinez. They're my parents." Her face lit up with recognition. "Oh! The Martinezes, yes, they checked in about 10 minutes ago. Of course you can join us. Let me just make you a guest badge." She printed a sticker with Sofia Martinez, guest, and handed it to me along with a program for the evening. Cocktail hour from 7 to 8, dinner at 8, awards and speeches starting at 9, open microphone for alumni sharing at 9:30. Perfect timing for what I had planned. I stuck the badge to my suit jacket and walked toward the ballroom. The large double doors stood open, revealing a space decorated for celebration. Round tables with navy tablecloths seated 8 people each. A stage at the far end held a podium and projection screen. A bar along the left wall already had a line of people ordering drinks. I positioned myself near the bar with a clear view of the entrance, ordered a club soda I didn't plan to drink, and waited. Catherine and Robert arrived at 7:15. My mother looked polished in an expensive emerald dress, her hair professionally colored to hide gray, subtle jewelry. She'd aged well. Good skincare and regular salon visits, probably. She looked like someone who'd had an easy, comfortable life. My father wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit, Italian leather shoes, a Rolex on his wrist that definitely cost more than the $2,000 they'd given me to start my adult life. He'd put on some weight but carried it well. Distinguished, people might call him. They worked the room like politicians at a fundraiser, moving from group to group, laughing loudly, touching arms, leaning in to hear old friends over the music. Everyone seemed happy to see them. Popular couple, clearly. I stayed partially hidden behind a tall plant arrangement and watched. A man in his late 40s approached them, someone whose name tag I couldn't read from this distance. He shook Robert's hand enthusiastically. I was close enough to hear fragments of conversation. "Robert, Catherine, great to see you both. Stephen, how are you?" My mother's voice carried that warm, genuine tone I remembered from my childhood, before I understood it was only used in public. "Can't complain. Hey, I saw that article about your daughter, CEO of a biotech company. That's incredible." My father's proud smile made me want to scream. "Yes, Sophia's doing wonderful things. We're very proud. You two must have done something right raising her. What's your secret?" Catherine laughed modestly. "Oh, we just tried to support her interests and give her space to grow. She was always so determined." The man named Stephen nodded appreciatively. "That's great parenting right there. So many people hover too much. You let her be independent." "Exactly," Robert agreed. "We always believed in teaching self-reliance. They taught me self-reliance by abandoning me. Technically true, I suppose." The conversation continued, but I couldn't hear more as they moved deeper into the crowd. My heart pounded so hard I thought people nearby might hear it. Watching them perform this charade of supportive parenting while I stood 20 feet away, a stranger they'd see as an intruder if they noticed me, was surreal and infuriating. A woman in a red dress approached me. Her name tag read Jennifer Walsh. "Hi, are you an alumna? I don't think we've met." I forced a polite smile. "I'm a guest. My parents graduated in the class of '98. "Oh, how nice! Are they here? I love meeting the next generation." "Yes, they're here. Catherine and Robert Martinez." Jennifer's face brightened with recognition. "Oh, I know them." "Well, I know of them through Facebook. Your mother posts the sweetest things about you. You're Sophia, right? The one with the medical research company?" "Biotech company, yes. That's me. Your parents must be so proud. Your mom always talks about how brilliant you are. You're lucky to have such supportive parents." The irony was so thick I nearly choked on it. "Thank you. I'm sure you'll get to meet them properly tonight." Jennifer smiled and wandered off to mingle with other guests. I returned to my observation post. Over the next 30 minutes, I watched at least 6 different people approach my parents and mention me. Each time, Catherine and Robert played their roles perfectly. Humble pride, fond memories. Vague implications of ongoing close relationship without explicitly stating we were in contact. They were good at this. 20 years of practice, I suppose. At 8 p.m., the event coordinator announced dinner service would begin. People found their assigned tables. I spotted my parents' table near the front of the room, table number 7. They sat with 3 other couples, all looking comfortable and established. I remained near the back, partially obscured by other standing guests, still nursing my untouched club soda. Dinner service lasted an hour. 3 courses: salad, chicken or fish entree, dessert. Wine flowed freely. Conversation and laughter filled the room. My parents seemed to be having a wonderful time, fully engaged with their table mates, no hint of guilt or discomfort. Why would they feel guilt? In their version of reality, they'd done nothing wrong. I was the ungrateful daughter who'd cut them off. They were the victims. At 9 p.m., the university president, a dignified woman in her 60s, approached the podium. She welcomed everyone, thanked them for attending, acknowledged the generous donations many alumni had made over the years. Then came the awards portion. 3 distinguished alumni received recognition for exceptional career achievements. A federal judge, a best-selling author, a nonprofit founder who'd built schools in developing countries, each walked to the stage to receive a plaque and give a brief acceptance speech. The room applauded enthusiastically. My parents clapped along with everyone else, looking engaged and supportive. After the awards, the president announced the open microphone portion. We'd love to hear from any alumni who want to share memories, updates, or thoughts about your time at the university and the years since. Please come up, don't be shy. Several people volunteered. Funny stories about dorm life, updates on career changes and grandchildren, reminiscing about professors and parties and the way things used to be. People laughed and clapped. It was all very warm and nostalgic. I set down my glass and started walking toward the microphone. The room was large enough that my movement toward the stage didn't immediately draw attention. But as I got closer, a few people noticed. A striking woman in a professional suit walking with purpose toward the podium while someone else was finishing their story. Catherine glanced over casually, then did a double take. Her wine glass froze halfway to her lips. I watched her face drain of color in real time. She grabbed Robert's arm. He followed her stare and went completely still. The alumni who'd been speaking finished their story and stepped away from the microphone to polite applause. I reached the podium as people were still clapping. The event coordinator looked at me with a welcoming smile, assuming I was just another enthusiastic alumna or guest ready to share something positive. I tapped the microphone. The sound echoed through the room. Conversations quieted as people turned their attention to the stage. I looked out at 200 faces. Then I focused on table 7, where my parents sat frozen like deer in headlights. "Good evening," I said. My voice sounded steadier than I felt. "My name is Sofia Martinez." The recognition rippled through the crowd like a wave. People whispered to each other, connecting the name to the daughter they'd heard about. Several people at nearby tables smiled, assuming this was a sweet surprise, maybe a tribute to my wonderful parents. I continued before anyone could interrupt. "I'm the daughter of Catherine and Robert Martinez, seated at table 7. All eyes turned toward their table. Catherine's forced smile looked like it had been carved into her face with a knife. Robert started to stand, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. "Please, Dad, stay seated. This won't take long." My use of Dad confused some people. The warm familiarity of it didn't match the tension visible on my parents' faces. I addressed the room again. "Many of you know my parents through their stories about raising me. Over the years, you've heard how supportive they were, how they sacrificed for my education, how proud they are of my accomplishments." I paused, let the words settle. People nodded. Yes, they'd heard exactly that. "I'm here tonight to share the truth." The temperature in the room seemed to drop. People sensed something was wrong. I opened my leather folder and pulled out the first document. On June 7, 2003, The night of my high school graduation, my parents handed me $2,000 in cash and 3 garbage bags containing my belongings. Audible gasps rippled through the crowd. They informed me that they never wanted children, that my birth was an accident they'd tolerated for 18 years. They ordered me to leave their home immediately and never return. Catherine shot to her feet. "This is outrageous. You're lying. Someone call security." I remained calm, though my heart raced. This was the reaction I'd prepared for. "I'm not lying, Mom. And I have witnesses." I held up another document. "Mr. and Mrs. Chen, your former neighbors at 42 Maple Street, provided sworn statements describing what they witnessed that evening. Would you like me to read them?" The room went completely silent. Everyone stared at table 7. Robert's face had turned a deep red. He stood now too, pointing at me. "We offered you help and you refused. You were rebellious and disrespectful. You chose to leave." "I have bank records," I said, pulling out another set of papers, showing that you provided zero financial support during my 4 years at Stanford. Yet you claimed me as a dependent on your tax returns through 2007. That's tax fraud, by the way. Someone in the crowd gasped. The university president stood up from her table, looking alarmed. I pressed on. "I worked 3 jobs while maintaining a full scholarship. I spent Thanksgiving and Christmas breaks alone in empty dormitories because I had nowhere to go and no money for transportation. I experienced food insecurity and housing instability throughout college." My voice cracked slightly, but I pushed through. "Meanwhile, you told our extended family that I was the one who'd cut off contact, that you'd tried to help me, but I was too proud to accept it." Aunt Patricia stood up from the back of the room where she'd arrived without me knowing. "It's true," she called out. "I witnessed my sister Catherine lie to our entire family about what happened. I tried to tell people the truth for years, but no one believed me." Catherine whipped around. "Patricia, you're insane. This is a family matter. Stay out of it." "You made it public when you lied about it publicly," Patricia shot back. I pulled out my phone, held it up. "For 20 years, my parents have maintained this abandonment privately, while publicly taking credit for my accomplishments. My mother's Facebook is full of throwback photos with captions like, 'Always knew she'd succeed,' and 'So proud of my brilliant daughter.'" I scrolled through screenshots on my phone. My father's LinkedIn profile lists him as proud father of Sofia Martinez, CEO of Helix Diagnostics. Last year, a local newspaper quoted him, saying he instilled strong work ethic in me from a young age. I looked directly at my parents. "Every achievement I earned despite your abandonment, you claimed as evidence of your parenting. You stole my narrative to boost your social status." Robert's aggression escalated. "We don't have to listen to this. You've always been dramatic and ungrateful. You're mentally unstable." There it was, the gaslighting attempt. I was ready. "I've been in therapy for 8 years processing the trauma of your abandonment, so yes, I got professional help for my mental health. What I don't need is to stand by while you profit socially from pain you inflicted." The room was absolutely silent now, except for some people crying quietly. Several guests were recording on their phones. I continued. "I was valedictorian. I earned a full scholarship to Stanford. I survived homelessness and food insecurity. I built a $50 million biotech company from nothing, with zero help from either of you." My voice remained steady despite the emotion threatening to overwhelm me. "The only thing I didn't earn was your love. And I've finally accepted that I never will, because you're not capable of it." Catherine was sobbing now, but they looked like performative tears. "Sophia, please, you're unwell. You need help. This isn't what happened." Classic Darvo. Deny, attack, reverse victim and offender. I have documentation, I said firmly. Bank statements, tax returns, witness statements, social media screenshots, newspaper articles where you lied about your involvement in my life. It's all here. I placed the folder on a nearby table. Evidence is available for anyone interested in facts rather than the story my parents have been selling. I looked out at the shocked faces in the crowd. Some people looked horrified. Some looked skeptical. Some looked sad. All looked uncomfortable. I came here tonight not for reconciliation. I came here for truth. These people, I gestured toward my parents, abandoned their child and spent 20 years lying about it for social capital. I wanted you all to know who Catherine and Robert Martinez really are behind the performance you've been watching. Tears were streaming down my face now, but my voice didn't waver. You don't get to erase what you did. Not anymore. The truth is public now. You can deny it, spin it, play victim all you want. But these people heard what you did, and they get to decide what to believe. I stepped away from the microphone and walked toward the exit. The room erupted in shocked conversation. Multiple people rushed toward table 7. I heard Catherine's voice rising, hysterical now, shouting something about lies and betrayal. Robert was yelling at someone to mind their business. The university president approached my parents with a stern expression, speaking to them in low, serious tones. I pushed through the double doors into the hotel hallway. My legs shook so badly I thought I might collapse. I made it to a bench near the elevators and sat down hard, adrenaline draining from my system so fast it left me dizzy. Aunt Patricia caught up with me 30 seconds later. She wrapped me in a fierce hug. "You were so brave," she said, crying. "I'm so sorry I didn't do more. I should have made bigger scenes, caused more trouble. I let them silence me." "It's not your fault," I managed to say. "You did what you could." We sat there together while my body shook with released tension. It was done. After 20 years of silence, I'd finally spoken my truth in front of everyone who'd believed their lies. I didn't know what would happen next. But I'd taken back my story, and that was everything. Within 24 hours, the video went viral. Someone had recorded my entire confrontation at the reunion and posted it to TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, everywhere. By Sunday morning, it had been viewed over 2 million times. By Monday, 5 million. The comments section was overwhelmingly supportive. Thousands of people shared their own stories of family estrangement and parental abandonment. Others praised my courage for speaking truth to people who'd wronged me. A few criticized me for public humiliation, but they were heavily outraged by supporters. Local news picked up the story Tuesday morning. Baltimore biotech CEO confronts parents over 20-year abandonment, ran on 3 different channels. They'd called Helix Diagnostics for comment. Our PR team forwarded the request to me. I declined interviews, but released a brief statement confirming the basic facts and saying I hoped my story would help others, dealing with family estrangement, feel less alone. Catherine and Robert went silent on social media. Both Facebook profiles went private. LinkedIn pages changed to restrict who could view them. They deleted years of posts about me, but screenshots had already been preserved and shared thousands of times. By Wednesday, I received an email from the university's Alumni Association director. The university was launching an investigation into Catherine and Robert's conduct. If the allegations were substantiated, they'd consider revoking Alumni Association privileges and removing them from donor recognition lists. My parents' social circle imploded rapidly. People they'd considered close friends stopped answering calls. The couples who'd sat at their reunion table gave interviews to local news, confirming they'd witnessed my confrontation and found it credible and disturbing. Their church community held an emergency meeting. Multiple members came forward saying they'd always found Catherine and Robert's stories about me inconsistent, but hadn't questioned them directly. The church board requested my parents step down from volunteer leadership positions until the matter was resolved. Robert's employer, a regional bank where he worked as a loan officer, received anonymous complaints raising concerns about his character and honesty. While they couldn't fire him without cause, his supervisors began documenting his performance more carefully. Catherine lost her book club when members voted 8-2 to remove her. Her garden club did the same. Invitations to social events dried up completely. The extended family civil war was brutal. Some relatives, particularly older ones who'd known Catherine since childhood, initially defended her. They called me vindictive, said I was exaggerating, insisted there must be more to the story. But Aunt Patricia rallied others. She shared the witness statements, showed people the documented evidence, reminded them that she'd been telling the truth for 20 years while being dismissed. My cousin Natalie, who was 10 years old when I was abandoned and now was 30, reached out via Facebook. I always knew something was wrong. Your parents' stories never made sense. I'm so sorry I didn't push harder to find you. The most significant contact came from my grandmother Helen, Catherine's mother. She called my cell phone 3 days after the reunion. I didn't recognize the number and almost didn't answer. Sophia? It's your grandmother. Please don't hang up. I considered hanging up. She'd believed Catherine's lies for 20 years, had cut off contact with me based on those lies. I'm listening, I said carefully. I need to apologize. I need you to understand that I believed your mother because I couldn't imagine she was capable of such cruelty. I was wrong. I should have investigated. I should have reached out to you directly. Her voice broke. I lost 20 years with my granddaughter because I took my daughter's word without question. That's on me. I failed you. The apology felt genuine in a way my parents' future attempts wouldn't. Grandmother Helen was taking accountability rather than deflecting. We agreed to meet the following week at a coffee shop in neutral territory. The meeting was awkward at first. She looked older than I remembered, frail in a way that made me sad. We'd lost 2 decades of relationship because Catherine had lied and Helen had believed her. But we talked for 3 hours. Helen shared things about Catherine's childhood and personality that helped me understand, though not excuse, what had happened. Your mother has always been profoundly selfish. Even as a child, she struggled to think about anyone's needs but her own. I thought having a child would mature her. Instead, it seemed to make her resentment worse. Helen explained that Catherine had considered giving me up for adoption when she was pregnant. Robert had talked her out of it, saying they'd figure it out. But Catherine never bonded with me the way mothers typically do. She saw you as an obligation that interfered with her life. I saw signs of emotional neglect over the years, but I didn't intervene enough. I assumed she'd grow into motherhood. She never did. The context helped me understand that my parents' abandonment wasn't about me being unlovable. It was about them being incapable of parental love. That distinction mattered therapeutically. Grandmother Helen established a trust fund for any future children I might have, with a handwritten letter apologizing for failing me when I needed family support. She couldn't undo the past, but she could try to help my future. I reconnected with Natalie and several cousins who reached out to apologize for believing Catherine's version of events. We started a group chat, slowly rebuilding family connections that had been severed by lies. Meanwhile, my parents were scrambling for damage control. Robert sent a legal threat through an attorney, claiming I'd defamed them and demanding I retract my statements publicly. My lawyer Amanda responded swiftly with a letter outlining the defamation countersuit we'd file if they continued harassing me. We had documentation proving every claim I'd made. They had nothing but lies. The legal threat died quickly. Catherine attempted a public apology via Facebook before her profile went private. She posted, "Family relationships are complex. Sometimes misunderstandings happen. We love Sophia and always have." The post was ratioed immediately. Thousands of comments called out the non-apology, demanded she take real accountability, shared the viral video of my confrontation. Catherine deleted the post within an hour. Robert's LinkedIn got flooded with connection requests from reporters and people asking pointed questions about his proud father claims. He deleted his account entirely. Their country club membership was quietly revoked. A board member who was friends with Aunt Patricia later explained they'd held a vote, and concerns about the Martinez's character and integrity led to a majority decision to ask them to leave. Professional consequences continued to mount. Robert's bank, concerned about reputational risk, moved him to a back-office position with reduced client contact. Catherine's dental office received negative reviews from patients who'd seen the news coverage and no longer wanted her as their hygienist. They hired a PR consultant to help rehabilitate their image. The consultant quit after one meeting, later telling a reporter that their version of events was impossible to spin into something sympathetic. My company, Helix Diagnostics, received thousands of supportive messages. Several major clients reached out to express solidarity and praise for my courage. Speaking invitations poured in from conferences about overcoming adversity, family estrangement, and resilience. I started getting interview requests from podcasts and media outlets. After consulting with Dr. Chen, I selectively accepted a few that felt aligned with helping others rather than exploiting my trauma. Therapy sessions in the weeks after the confrontation were intense. Dr. Chen helped me process the complex emotions. Relief at finally speaking my truth, residual anger at my parents, grief for the family that never was, validation from public support, guilt about the public nature of the confrontation. "You reclaimed your narrative," Dr. Chen said during one session. "That's powerful healing. But remember that healing isn't linear. You'll have good days and hard days." He was right. Some days I felt empowered and free. Other days I felt exhausted and sad. The confrontation had been necessary, but it hadn't magically healed 20 years of trauma. I started dating again, something I'd avoided for years because of trust issues. I met Ryan Cooper through a friend's dinner party. He was a civil engineer, kind and stable, with a healthy relationship with his own parents. When I told him my story early on, expecting him to run, he simply said, "That must have been incredibly difficult. Thank you for trusting me with it." His family welcomed me warmly. His mother, Sarah, hugged me the first time we met and said, "Anyone who builds what you've built from nothing is extraordinary." It was the maternal warmth I'd never received from Catherine. Uncle Raymond hosted a small gathering with family members who supported me. Just 8 of us: Raymond and Patricia, grandmother Helen, Natalie, and 2 other cousins, me and Ryan. It was the first real family celebration I'd experienced since I was 18. We didn't talk about Catherine and Robert. We talked about my company, my future, my life. We laughed and told stories. Grandmother Helen showed photos from her phone of me as a child, pictures I'd never seen. "You were such a curious little girl," she said, showing me a photo of 5-year-old me examining a butterfly. "Always asking questions, always exploring. That curiosity built your success." It felt good to be seen by family who actually knew me. March 2024 marked 1 year since the reunion confrontation. My life had transformed in ways I couldn't have imagined. My memoir, Disposable Daughter, released in January and hit the bestseller list within 2 weeks. The book chronicled my experience of abandonment, survival, and building success despite family rejection. I wrote it for the thousands of people who'd shared their own estrangement stories after my video went viral. The book tour took me to 40 cities. At every event, people lined up for hours to share their stories with me. Adult children estranged from abusive parents. People whose families had chosen favorites and scapegoats. Individuals who'd been abandoned, disowned, or rejected for not meeting family expectations. "You made me feel less alone," they said over and over. "You made me understand it wasn't my fault." That made everything worth it. The pain, the public exposure, the ongoing aftermath. If my story helped others heal, then something good came from all that suffering. Helix Diagnostics continued thriving under my leadership. We expanded to 300 employees and opened a second research facility. Company valuation reached $200 million. But more importantly, we were developing technology that saved lives by detecting genetic disorders early. I established the Helen Richardson Scholarship Fund at Stanford, named after the professor who'd helped me survive freshman year. The scholarship fully funded 20 first-generation college students annually, including housing, meal plans, textbooks, and emergency cash grants. Everything I desperately needed and didn't have. I promoted from within at Helix, creating leadership opportunities for employees who'd shown dedication and talent. I established a mentorship program pairing senior staff with junior researchers. I built the kind of supportive workplace environment I'd craved when I was struggling alone. In May, Ryan proposed during a weekend trip to the mountains. He didn't ask my parents' permission because we both understood they weren't part of my life. Uncle Raymond gave his blessing when Ryan asked, and that felt right. We married in September, small ceremony at a vineyard with 70 guests. All chosen family, people who actually loved and supported us. Uncle Raymond walked me down the aisle, while Grandmother Helen cried happy tears in the front row. Aunt Patricia and Natalie stood as my bridesmaids. Ryan's parents welcomed me into their family with genuine warmth. His mother Sarah asked if she could introduce me as her daughter, not daughter-in-law. "Your family now," she said simply. The wedding had no traditional parent roles because my parents weren't there. We didn't include father-daughter dances or mother-son dances. Instead, we had a chosen family dance where everyone who'd supported us joined on the dance floor together. It was perfect. 2 days after we returned from our honeymoon in Italy, a delivery arrived at our house. Expensive crystal vase, clearly wedding gift, no card. The return address was my parents' house. I stared at that vase for a long time. No note, no apology. Just an empty gesture trying to buy their way back into acknowledgement. Ryan asked what I wanted to do with it. "Donate it," I said. "To Goodwill or somewhere it can actually be useful." We dropped it off that afternoon. I didn't send a thank you note. Didn't acknowledge receipt. They'd sent a gift to ease their own conscience, not because they actually cared about my marriage. I owed them nothing. In October, their lawyer contacted my lawyer with a final proposal. Catherine and Robert would cease all attempts to contact me if I agreed to stop discussing them publicly. They wanted a mutual, non-disparagement agreement. I counter-proposed through Amanda. They could never use my name, image, or any reference to me again in any context. No social media posts, no conversations with mutual acquaintances, nothing. In exchange, I'd stop actively seeking platforms to discuss them, though I retained the right to share my story if asked. They accepted. We signed legal documents making it binding. It was the final severing of any remaining tie. 3 months later, I found out I was pregnant. The news brought complex emotions: joy at starting a family with Ryan, fear about repeating cycles of bad parenting, determination to be nothing like Catherine and Robert. I increased my therapy sessions with Dr. Chen to process fears about becoming a mother after being abandoned by mine. We worked through concerns about attachment, discipline, unconditional love, all of it. "You're not your mother," Dr. Chen reminded me repeatedly. "You're aware. You're in therapy. You're committed to breaking patterns. That awareness is everything." Ryan and I took parenting classes together, read books about conscious parenting and secure attachment, talked extensively about our values and what kind of family culture we wanted to create. Grace Helen Cooper was born in December, 7 pounds 3 ounces, healthy and perfect. We gave her the middle name Helen to honor my grandmother who'd worked to repair our relationship. The first time I held Grace, overwhelming love flooded through me. This tiny, perfect human trusted me completely, needed me entirely. I looked at her scrunched up face and couldn't comprehend how anyone could fail to love their child. I made a vow to her while Ryan took photos. "You will always be wanted, always be loved, always be enough. I will never make you question your worth." Grandmother Helen came to meet her namesake when Grace was 2 weeks old. She held her great-granddaughter and cried, "She's beautiful. You're going to be a wonderful mother." "I'm terrified," I admitted. "Good," Helen said. "Parents who care about doing it right are usually terrified. It's the ones who think they're perfect who mess up their kids." Social media posts about Grace generated thousands of supportive comments. People who'd followed my story since the reunion video expressed joy that I'd found happiness and family. My parents' lawyer sent one final communication. Catherine and Robert were requesting visitation rights as grandparents. Amanda shut it down immediately. With no prior relationship and decades of abandonment, they had zero legal standing. The request was denied, and they were warned that further contact would result in harassment charges. They sent one last attempt at contact, a ceasefire offer through their lawyer. They'd stop trying to reach me if I agreed to stop discussing them publicly, with stricter terms than before. I accepted with one addition. They could never use my name, my image, or reference me in any way ever again. Not in conversation, not on social media, not to mutual acquaintances, nothing. I would legally be dead to them the way they'd treated me as dead for 20 years. The agreement was signed and notarized. Final. 3 years passed. Grace grew into a thriving, joyful 3-year-old. Our son James was born when Grace was 2. Both children were surrounded by love. Uncle Raymond, Grandmother Helen, Aunt Patricia's family, Ryan's parents who doted on them completely. Helix Diagnostics was acquired by a major pharmaceutical company for $400 million. I stayed on as Chief Innovation Officer with complete control over research direction and culture. The acquisition meant resources to develop technology that would help even more people. I volunteered as a speaker at conferences for adult children dealing with family estrangement. Became an advocate for legal recognition that family estrangement is sometimes necessary and healthy. Pushed back against blood is thicker than water narratives that kept people in toxic family dynamics. The work felt meaningful, turning my pain into purpose for others. One evening, I was putting Grace to bed when she asked, "Mommy, why don't I have other grandparents like James has Grandma Sarah and Grandpa Michael?" I'd prepared for this question. Some people aren't able to be good grandparents, sweetheart. It's not about you. It's about them. But you have so many people who love you. Uncle Raymond, Grandma Helen, Aunt Patricia. You have more family than you can count. She seemed satisfied with that answer. "Okay," Can you read me another story? Life moved forward. The past stayed in the past where it belonged. I spent 18 years unwanted and 20 years proving my worth to people who would never see it. Now I spend every day being fully present for people who already know my value. That's not just survival. That's victory. My home office has 2 framed photos on the wall. The first, my high school graduation photo. I'm smiling, wearing my cap and gown with that gold honor cord, holding my diploma. I'm alone in the photo. That picture represents where I started. Next to it, a family photo from last Christmas. Me, Ryan, Grace, James, Uncle Raymond, Grandmother Helen, Aunt Patricia, Natalie, Ryan's parents. 11 people who chose to love me, support me, celebrate me. The contrast between those 2 photos tells the whole story. From abandoned and alone to surrounded by chosen family, I built the family I deserved, and I'm finally home. So here's what I want to know from all of you who've been on this journey with me. Have you ever had to stand up to family members who tried to rewrite your history? How did you handle it? Did you get justice, or did you have to find peace without it? Drop your thoughts in the comments because I read every single one and your stories matter. If this resonated with you, hit that like button. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that they're not alone in family struggles. And subscribe, because telling our truths, the messy, complicated, real ones, is how we heal together. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for believing survivors. Thank you for understanding that sometimes the bravest thing we can do is walk away from people who hurt us, even when they're family. To anyone out there dealing with family estrangement, abandonment, or toxic relationships, your worth isn't determined by people who failed to see it. You get to build the life and family you deserve. It's hard, it takes time, but you're stronger than you know. I'm proof that you can survive being unwanted and build something extraordinary anyway. Not despite the pain, but through developing resilience the pain forced you to find. That's my story. That's my truth. And I'm finally, completely, at peace with it. Take care of yourselves. Choose your family wisely. And never let anyone steal your narrative.